Now this is an image that was overlooked because it was too dark. However, since it was shot in camera raw, we've got to really examine it and make sure there's detail that we can bring out. And sure enough, when you zoom in at 100%, there's lots of detail. And these zebras and the dust and the late day light, the reflections, everything is really good, but it's just too dark. So to start with, I'm going to just click the auto tone button, which Lightroom usually makes too bright, but it gives us a sense of what's going on in here. Lightroom wants to give us a nice average exposure, which it did, but we're going to make it darker. We're going to take that exposure button and double click it, and that will zero out the exposure, leaving all my contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks settings. This is before, and this is after. And this has given us a really good start. But we want to start bringing some more attention to the middle of this. We still need to open up some shadow detail and give it some focus. And we're going to do that using some of the local adjustment tools in the toolbar, like the Radial Filter. So where's the Radial Filter? The Radial Filter is in the toolbar. That's right up here above your basic panel. And if you hold your cursor over any of these items, you'll get a little readout. You'll see in this case it's going to say Radial Filter, or Shift M if you're going to use your keyboard command. And selecting this will open up my adjustment panel for the Radial Filter. I want to just have my shadows at 100 so I can see what's going to happen inside the ellipse I'm about to draw. And I want to make sure invert mask is selected so that the changes I'm about to make will be reflected inside the ellipse. I'm just going to adjust my feathers so it's at 50, which is an average and what I usually use. So to start with, I'm going to click and drag an ellipse from the center of my picture to open up the zebras in the scene. I'm just clicking and dragging all the way out to the edge, and I'm making sure that my ellipse is kissing my horizon and my foreground, which is not going to be opened up. As an aside, I use auto for show edit pins because auto allows me to hide my pins and the ellipses when I'm making my adjustments, which make it a lot easier to see. And now I'm going to adjust the shadow slider. It's much too bright, so I'm going to just move the slider down all the way in case there are any surprises that actually make the picture better. I like to look at everything, and 60 seems as bright as I'd like to make it right now. And I think maybe I'm just going to move this over a little bit. So I'm just going to straighten out my ellipse and make it dead center, kissing the horizon and the foreground. And now here's what I mean by layering. I'm going to go to New and select New Radial, and you'll notice my settings jump back to where they originally were with shadows at 100. Invert mask is still set. But if I put my cursor in the dead center, I'm going to get the hand for moving the other ellipse. So I'm going to move slightly to the right, and I'm going to click and drag a smaller radial just around that center group of zebras. See, there it is. You don't see much, but that doesn't matter because I can always make changes now, and my shadows are just not opening up the way I want them to at the moment. So I'm going to just change my exposure just a hair. So I'm moving that up to 0.33. Subtlety is what's really important about this. Now I'm going to turn off my work on these radial filters. That's before, and that's after. So that's my starting point. Now let's zoom in, and this is at 1:1 to really see what's going on here with the work that we've just done. I'm holding down the space bar to get the zoom tool, and I'm seeing some nice open areas here where you can see all the dust, some nice late day light. Even the zebras are picking up some pink from that sunset. The water still holds its detail. So I think overall I'm pretty happy right now with what we've done. And I'm going to hold down the space bar again to get the zoom tool, click once to zoom out, and I'm going to click done because I'm done now with the radial filter. And now that I've gotten some work done, it really feels like this picture needs to be a panoramic format. There's too much blank sky. If there were clouds, it would be another story. And there's too much brush in the foreground, which is taking our attention away from the zebras. So I'm going to go to the crop tool, which is the R key, and I'm going to unlock the lock next to the word original, and that's going to allow me to adjust my cropping one side at a time. And I want to get rid of a lot of the top of this because there's no color in it and it's not very interesting. And my focus is the zebra. There's a little cloud there on the left hand side, but I just want this red, and I want to get rid of a lot of this brush that's in the foreground as well. And that's just going to make the picture more interesting because my focus is now going to really be on the zebras and not on the brush and the blank sky. Once I've got something I like, which is pretty good, we've got about a third foreground. We have the zebras in the dead center. I'm going to just adjust this a little bit, just a little bit of red in the sky. And I feel like I've kind of got it the way I'd like it. So I'm ready to click done. And this is going to be my crop. And now the image is much more interesting and much stronger. So now what we want to do is we still want to continue bringing our focus into our subject, which are the zebra in the center of the picture. And the sky is still really bright, and it distracts away from the visual of the zebras in the center and the bright lake. And the foreground probably we'll want to make that darker too. So let's just start out by going again to our toolbar and choosing the graduated filter, and in this particular case you'll see our shadows are still at that 100 that we set earlier, and there's no invert checkbox as there is with the radial filter. So we're going to double click the shadow slider to zero that out, and again we're not really making a decision right now on how much darker we want the sky. We just want to be able to see what our gradient is going to look like when we draw it. So I'm going to click and drag and bring this down to that halfway point. That center point is 50%, the top is 100%, and the bottom there is 0% change. And because we set this at -2, which is way too much, I'm going to bring this back to -1, and I'm going to bring my highlights down, and actually look at that. There's some striation in the sky that we didn't see before because we're only changing the highlights, which now it seems a little too dark. So I'm going to change my exposure back up. Again, it's a little bit of balance. It's give and take when you make these adjustments. And because my show edit pins option is set to auto, every time I move off the canvas, the pins and the graduated filter are hidden. And so my final settings here are -60 for the exposure and -58 for the highlights. Now, just like we did with our radial filter, we're going to add a new gradient filter at the bottom. So we're going to select new, and once we've selected new, you'll notice our exposure is back to that -2 that we set earlier. And I'm going to drag this up from the bottom. It's way too dark, but this at least gives me an opportunity to see where I'm placing my gradient. So I'm going to come back to my control panel now and double click the word exposure. That's going to zero out that. And I'm going to work with just the shadows because I want to leave some of the highlights that are in the brush in the foreground. So somewhere around 50 or so looks good. And this way we hold on some of the detail in the foreground. As I look at this, I feel like I could still do a little bit more work at the top, maybe darken up some of the top section of the image. So I'm putting my cursor over that bullet, and it's I've got to click on it, and that selects it. When you have a black bullet, it means it's selected. When you have a gray bullet, it's not. And when I get my glove, my hand, I put it over it and I drag it down. That's darkening that top third of the picture just a little bit more while keeping the zebras rich and bright in the center of the frame. I feel like I have the right look here, so I'm going to click done. But part of this just doesn't feel right because this still feels too bright to me. This is a late day shot. So I'm going to click on the canvas and zoom in at 1:1. And yes, it's noisy, but better to shoot an image at a high ISO than to not have the image at all. Here's a perfect example. I want to make this a little bit darker. And again, this is always about subtleties. And I'm going to put this around minus 0.5. This is minus 0.55. And this feels more like late day. And I really want to warm up the entire scene. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do a global adjustment in the basic panel. I'm going to go to the temperature. Right now the temperature is 4,000 and I want to bring that up. I want to bring it toward the yellow, not the blue. So we get a warmer temperature. That's going to bring the numbers bigger. And we're warming up the entire scene. I'm bringing this around 5,000. And that's going to make the scene feel a little warmer and a little bit more like late day. So finally, I'm just going to sit back and relax, tap the F key to look at this image in full screen. That's just the F key. And I think I'm done. I want to thank my student, Shaula Yamini, for letting me use this wonderful photograph to demonstrate layering techniques in Lightroom. This is Lightroom Guy. Thanks for watching.